Well, folks, ABC just pulled the plug on Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely. Apparently, mocking the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk was the last straw. And while Kimmel's defenders are screaming censorship and authoritarianism, Disney accounts are probably popping champagne because let's be honest, Kimmel wasn't exactly lighting up the ratings board. His show was losing viewers, losing advertisers, and hemorrhaging money faster than California loses residents. So let's break this down because this isn't just about free speech, it's about dollars, demographics, and Disney's bottom line. Now you have the suspension and FCC threats. First, the politics. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, a Trump appointee, came out swinging and threatened to yank ABC's broadcast licenses. Think about that for a second. The federal government literally threatening to shut down a network over a comedian's jokes. Although they can't do that because overhead broadcasting, as called, does use public airwaves, so it does have certain standards it has to meet. Whereas Fox News is over cable, does not have to meet the same standards. Critics call that raw political pressure, and they're right. Government should not be in the business of deciding what counts as acceptable comedy. However, it's a public airway, so they do have a right to regulate, even though I don't agree with that. But here's the kicker. Disney did not really need much convincing. Why, you might ask? Because Jimmy Kimmel Live was not printing money anymore. It was burning it. If this show was still the ratings juggernaut it was in 2015, trust me, Disney would have fought tooth and nail to keep him on air. But when you are already dragging a sinking ship, a little controversy is the perfect excuse to eh, pitch it overboard, which they did. Now let's get into the historical fact about this. The ratings collapse. Now let's talk numbers because numbers don't lie. In 2015, Jimmy Kimmel was pulling in about 2.4 million viewers on average. By 2024, that was down to about 1.35 million. That is a 44% collapse, and the money demo, 18 to 49 age group, advertisers actually care about, fell even harder, down 72%. By early 2025, things were looking okay, around 1.9 million views, recovered a little bit, still competitive. But by August, that cratered to about 1.2 million. And right before suspension in September, we're talking about 1.1 million. That's not just a dip, that's a nosedive. Imagine losing half your audience in a decade while trying to justify a $15 to $18 million annual paycheck for the host. That breaks down to about $88,000 an episode for fewer and fewer eyeballs. No wonder the accountants were sweating. Now let's talk about it. Money talks, bullshit walk. Money walks, bullshit talks. The ad revenue reality. Now, it's not just about ratings. It is about ad dollars. In 2018, late night TV crossed across all the major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, pulled in $439 million in ad revenue. Fast forward to 2024, and that number was almost cut in half, down to 221 million. Kimmel's show alone brought in under 70 million this year. That might sound like a lot, but when your production costs and Kimmel's paycheck add up, ABC was actually losing money. In fact, one analyst pegged the cost at 68 cents per viewer. So every time you turn in to watch Jimmy Kimmel, dunk on Ted Cruz, or tell another Trump joke, Disney was practically handing you three quarters. That is not sustainable. And when advertisers are already fleeing late night in favor of streaming and TikTok, Kimmel became an expensive habit that Disney could no longer afford, like your buddy that likes to drink champagne and he's broke. Now, the comparisons to Colbert and Fallon. And here's where it gets interesting. Kimmel was not dead last. He was actually in the middle of the late night pack. Colbert averaged 2.4 in the second quarter of this year. While Fallon was struggling with 1.19 million, Kimmel was right in between them at about 1.7. And get this, earlier this year, he even won the 18 to 49 demo, beating Colbert and Fallon. So the problem was not that he was irrelevant. The problem was the entire late night model is collapsing. People do not stay up until 11:30 to watch monologues anymore, especially one-sided monologues. They watch clips on YouTube or they scroll TikTok. So ABC had to ask itself, is it worth paying 18 million a year for a guy whose audience now fits in a college football stadium? The answer is no. Not when he is also a political liability. Now let's talk about his contract and the future. Kimmel's contract runs until May 2026. And yes, he is still on the payroll. But here's the trick. There is no evidence his deal guarantees him airtime. Disney can bench him, suspend him, or cancel the show outright without technically breaching the contract. He gets paid, but the network stops the bleeding. That is probably why we've not heard anything about lawsuits yet. I think though they are starting to do that. For now, reports say Disney and Kimmel are in talks for some kind of compensation to bring the show back. Translation: Disney might let him return under tighter controls, or maybe shove him onto Hulu or Disney Plus, where he can rant without costing them broadcasting dollars. So let's put a bow on this, and then I'm going to give a little more breakdown. So here's the bottom line. Kimmel's downfall is a mix of politics and economics. Was there pressure from Trump's FCC appointee? Absolutely. But would ABC have stood its ground if Kimmel was still raking in the ratings and the ad dollars like in 2015? Probably. Instead, they saw an opportunity to cut their losses on the declining show. Free speech versus government power, that is the headline. But behind it is a sobering truth. Late night comedy is dying, and Jimmy Kimmel Live just became the latest casualty. The question now is not whether Kimmel comes back. The real question is whether late night itself even survives the decade. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And as always, stay free, stay informed, stay accountable. Now, for the wrap up in my personal view on this, because this was very much sourced from the media. I think it was more of they wanted a way out, and his comment gave him a way out. But we also need to go back and look at Jimmy Kimmel in the early 2000s and The Man Show. He did blackface, and no one ever seemed to hold him to account for that when he put on blackface and was Carl Malone or girls jumping on trampolines. Yes, times have changed, but we hold certain people something they said a decade ago or 20 years ago. We hold them to a different standard than we hold other people who did stuff that would be substantially worse in terms of blackface and other things. So let's be real. Was there politics involved in this? Yes. Was there money decisions? Yes. It was. This was ultimately a money decision at the end of the day. They needed to cut bait, and they did. So have a great day, and I'll see you next Monday.